A captain's armband hit the concrete floor. N'Golo Kanté bent down to pick it up. Stamford Bridge. March 2019. 7 minutes before kickoff. The tunnel was alive with that electric pre-match energy. Boots clicking on concrete, players adjusting shin guards, the distant roar of 50,000 fans creating a low rumble that vibrated through the walls. 2 lines of players stood ready. Chelsea in blue. The opposition in red. Standard Premier League protocol. Walk out together. Shake hands. Play the match. Everything routine. Everything expected. Until the armband fell. It happened in the center of the tunnel. The opposing captain, a veteran midfielder known for his aggressive style, his vocal leadership, his tendency to dominate every space he entered, was adjusting his kit. The captain's armband slipped from his bicep, tumbled down his arm, and hit the floor with a soft thud that shouldn't have mattered. But in that narrow concrete corridor, with 30 players packed close together, everyone saw it fall. The opposing captain looked down at it. Then he looked forward, toward the pitch entrance, calculating whether bending down was worth the effort, whether it mattered, whether anyone would even notice if he just left it there. Before he could decide, N'Golo Kanté moved. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just a simple, deliberate motion. He took 2 steps forward, bent at the waist, and reached down toward the crumpled fabric on the concrete floor. In that tunnel, 32 men froze. And silence replaced the pre-match noise. Behind Kanté, his Chelsea teammates stopped mid-step. Ahead of him, the opposing players went still. Security guards paused. Tunnel staff held their clipboards motionless. Everyone watching this small man in the number 7 shirt do something that didn't make tactical sense, didn't serve any competitive advantage, didn't fit the pre-match psychology of dominance and intimidation. The opposing captain stared. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to say something, maybe, "Don't worry about it," or, "I've got it," but no words came out. Kanté's fingers touched the armband. He lifted it carefully, almost reverently, like it was something precious rather than a piece of elastic fabric with a letter printed on it. He straightened up, turned to face the opposing captain directly, and held it out. "You drop this," Kanté said quietly, his French accent soft, his expression completely neutral. No smile. No judgment. Just a simple statement of fact. The opposing captain took the armband with trembling fingers. "I thank you. I didn't." "It's important," Kanté interrupted gently. "You should wear it." He turned back toward his position in the Chelsea line. The tunnel remained silent for 3 more seconds, an eternity in that compressed space, before normal noise slowly returned. Boots clicking. Voices murmuring. But something had shifted. Everyone in that tunnel knew they'd witnessed something unusual. Kanté didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. But to understand why that moment mattered, you need to understand what happened 3 weeks earlier. The opposing captain's name was Marcus Webb. 31 years old. 10 years in the Premier League. Known for his work rate, his tactical intelligence, and his mouth. Marcus talked constantly on the pitch, directing teammates, challenging referees, getting under opponents' skin with perfectly calibrated verbal jabs that never quite crossed into yellow card territory. He was good at it. Effective. His team relied on his vocal leadership. But lately, the talking had become something else. Sharper. Meaner. Less about tactics and more about ego. 3 weeks before that tunnel moment, Marcus's team had played Chelsea at their home ground. The match was tight. Physical. Chelsea dominated possession but couldn't break through. Marcus spent 90 minutes in Kanté's zone, pressing, challenging, trying to disrupt the small Frenchman's rhythm. Kanté responded the way he always did, by working. No complaints. No retaliation. Just relentless positioning, tireless running, perfect timing on tackles and interceptions. By the 80th minute, Marcus was exhausted. Kanté looked like he could play another full match. And that's when Marcus made a mistake. During a break in play, he jogged past Kanté and muttered just loud enough for nearby players to hear. "Must be easy when you don't have to think. Just run like a dog." Several players heard it. Kanté didn't react. Didn't turn his head. Didn't acknowledge the comment in any way. He just adjusted his socks and prepared for the restart. The match ended 1-0 Chelsea. Kanté was named man of the match. 11 kilometers covered. 14 interceptions. 3 key passes. 1 assist. The statistics told the story Marcus's words couldn't erase. After the final whistle, in the handshake line, Kanté shook Marcus's hand with the same quiet courtesy he showed everyone. No lingering grip. No pointed look. Just a brief, respectful acknowledgement before moving on. Marcus told himself it didn't matter. That Kanté probably hadn't even heard the comment. That even if he had, he'd forgotten it by now. But Marcus hadn't forgotten. The comment sat in his mind like a splinter, uncomfortable every time he remembered it. Because deep down, he knew what he'd said revealed more about himself than about Kanté. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. The 3 weeks between that match and the tunnel moment had been difficult for Marcus. His team was struggling. Losses piling up. Pressure mounting. His own performance slipping, not dramatically, but enough that he could feel it, that nagging sense that his body wasn't responding quite as quickly as it used to. He was getting older. 31 in football years. The young players coming up behind him were faster, hungrier. His contract was up for renewal at season's end, and negotiations weren't going well. The captain's armband was the only thing he had that proved his value. Leadership. Experience. The respect of being chosen to wear that piece of fabric. Except lately, he wasn't sure he deserved it. The night before the Chelsea match, Marcus had barely slept. He kept replaying that comment. "Just run like a dog," and feeling ashamed. Not because anyone had called him on it. Not because there had been consequences. But because he knew it was beneath him. Beneath what a captain should be. He thought about reaching out to Kanté. Maybe through a mutual contact. Maybe just a direct message on social media. Apologize. Clear the air. But every time he drafted something in his mind, it sounded hollow. Empty. Like he was trying to make himself feel better rather than actually making amends. So he'd done nothing. And now, 7 minutes before kickoff, he was standing in the Stamford Bridge tunnel trying to psych himself up for 90 minutes of battle against a team that had dominated them 3 weeks ago. That's when his armband fell. And that's when N'Golo Kanté bent down to pick it up. Marcus took the armband from Kanté's outstretched hand and stared at it. The C printed on the fabric suddenly felt like the heaviest letter in the alphabet. "Thank you," he said again, his voice rougher now. 3 weeks ago, I said something. To you? During the match. I shouldn't have. I know," Kanté said simply. Marcus's head snapped up. "You heard?" "Yes." "And you?" Kanté looked at him with those calm, dark eyes. "You were frustrated. It happens. The match is over. But I was disrespectful. To you? And you just..." Marcus gestured helplessly at the armband in his hand. "Why did you pick this up?" Kanté tilted his head slightly, considering the question like it was genuinely puzzling. "Because you dropped it. And you're a captain. The armband matters." Away from the cameras, Kanté made a choice no one expected. The referee's whistle echoed down the tunnel. Time to walk out. The teams began moving toward the pitch entrance, that wall of noise from the stadium growing louder with each step. Marcus fastened the armband back around his bicep. His hands were still shaking slightly. He fell into line with his teammates, but his mind was spinning. Kanté hadn't lectured him. Hadn't made him feel small. Hadn't even accepted the apology directly. Had just acknowledged it and moved on. Like the whole thing was already forgotten. Already forgiven. Not because Marcus deserved forgiveness, but because Kanté simply didn't carry grudges. The teams emerged onto the pitch. 50,000 people roaring. Lights blazing. Cameras everywhere. The handshake line formed at the center circle, 2 rows of players gripping hands briefly before spreading out for kickoff. When Marcus reached Kanté in the line, he gripped the smaller man's hand and held it for just a second longer than normal. "Thank you," he said, barely audible over the crowd noise. Kanté nodded. "Play well, captain." The match kicked off. For the first 20 minutes, it followed the expected pattern. Chelsea controlled possession. Marcus's team defended deep, looking for counter-attacks. Kanté was everywhere. Reading passes, cutting off angles, recycling possession with those simple, perfect touches that made difficult things look routine. In the 23rd minute, the pattern broke. Marcus won the ball in midfield. A rare moment of possession in Chelsea's half. He looked up, saw space, saw his striker making a run. The pass was on. He could play it forward, start a counter-attack, maybe create something dangerous. But he hesitated for a fraction of a second. And in that tiny gap, Kanté arrived. Not sliding in recklessly. Not lunging desperately. Just appearing in the space Marcus needed, reading the play 3 seconds before it happened, positioning his body perfectly to intercept the pass. Except Kanté didn't intercept it. Marcus felt the contact, Kanté's shoulder brushing his, Kanté's foot extending toward the ball, and braced for the tackle. But instead of taking the ball cleanly, Kanté's foot nudged it slightly, knocking it just a few inches off line so Marcus's pass went astray but stayed in play. It was such a subtle intervention that most people in the stadium probably didn't even notice. Not a tackle. Not an interception. Just enough contact to disrupt without humiliating. The ball rolled out of bounds. Throw into Chelsea. Simple. Clean. Respectful. Marcus stood there for a moment, understanding what had just happened. Kanté could have stripped him completely. Could have made him look foolish. Could have turned that moment into a highlight reel of dominance. Instead, he'd given Marcus his dignity. The match continued. Chelsea won 2-0. Kanté was, again, named man of the match. But the statistics didn't capture the real story of what happened on that pitch. But what followed would stay with everyone who witnessed it, forever. After the final whistle, Marcus walked directly to Kanté. The Chelsea midfielder was shaking hands with opponents. That same calm courtesy he showed everyone, seemingly unbothered by his excellence. "Kanté," Marcus said, and waited until the Frenchman turned to face him. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "In the 23rd minute, when I had the ball, you could have taken it completely. But you didn't. Why?" Kanté looked genuinely confused by the question. "You're a good player. You were trying to make the right pass. I just needed to stop the attack. Not embarrass you. But this is professional football. You're supposed to. I'm supposed to help my team win." Kanté interrupted gently. "Embarrassing you doesn't help us win. Stopping the attack does. That's all." Marcus shook his head slowly. "Most players would have destroyed me in that moment." Made a statement. Kanté smiled for the first time, small, quick, almost shy. "Statements are loud. I prefer to just play." They shook hands again. Marcus held on for a moment, looking at this man who was redefining what strength meant. "Thank you," Marcus said. "For the armband. For everything." Kanté nodded. "Respect the armband. It's bigger than us." 2 months later, Marcus's team played Chelsea again. Before the match, in the tunnel, Marcus approached Kanté and handed him something, a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" Kanté asked. "A letter. To the young players on my team. About what leadership actually means." "I thought you should read it first." Kanté unfolded it, read silently, then handed it back. "You should give this to them. They'll listen to their captain. I learned it from watching you," Marcus said. Kanté smiled that small, shy smile. "Then teach them." Real power isn't proving you're the strongest. It's knowing when strength isn't needed. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. Marcus wore that captain's armband for 3 more seasons. He never dropped it again. And when he finally retired, he framed it alongside a photograph, a grainy image someone had captured in the Stamford Bridge tunnel of N'Golo Kanté bending down to pick up a piece of fabric that didn't belong to him. The caption beneath it read, "The day I learned what a captain really is."